in Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar, in Vietnam. Okay, so that's very interesting. And then he spent some time back to Southeast Asia managing several companies. And he joined Illumina in 2019, this year. So he overseeing the operation in the APAC region, in Japan, and also China. So today, Xavier is going to share with us about the global trends and future direction of population genomics. So Xavier, please.
Thank you so much. So as Donovan has mentioned, we are really happy to be invited by NHI, and for the last almost a year, we've been working very closely with Peter in terms of how he envisioned the integration of the scaling up of genomics into the Taiwanese healthcare system. So for today, I'm going to be sharing sort of the perspective that we have gathered over the last few years across more than 15 national programs across the world, and I'll talk through some of the public health perspective and some of the learnings that we think could be relevant for Taiwan, especially from a health system perspective. So that's the sort of agenda for the next 30 minutes. So one of the things that as you may have read from my bio, I actually don't come from like a deep genomics background, but more from a public health perspective. And so for me, when I enter into this, let's say environment, my sense is always to kind of understand what are we trying to do, right? And so one of the things that struck me is that today, the very reason why most of us are in genomics is really to improve health and improve outcome for patients. And so one of the key things that I've seen that is going to drive a lot of this is going to be clinical utility, right? And so we've heard from many speakers yesterday, this morning as well, that clinical whole genome sequencing is already having sort of an immediate impact on rugged and for cancer. So the numbers that you see here are sort of international scientific evidence, and what we have seen is also very close to what Taiwan has achieved, at least in terms of the actionability that you can get from rare disease. And then as you can see, some of the key and very clear applications in leukemia and breast cancer. So that's kind of how I think I start my journey into understanding how really can we work with health system to do genomics at scale. And then taking a step back, when we look at it more from also an epidemiology perspective, we believe that whatever investment that we're making in clinical whole genome for rare disease and cancer would pave the way for common disease as well. So obviously, if you look at globally, about 7 billion people, 135 million births a year, what we find is that no matter which health system you are in, roughly you're looking about 3 to 5% of that population having the disease burden or the prevalence for rugged, and then about 40% to 45% could the burden of disease on the health system would be on cancer, subsequently for cardiovascular, diabetes, and neurology. So two things that we can learn from this is that the investment on setting up the right infrastructure and the right sort of at scale design principles for sequencing and bioinformatics really help you to not only address the immediate utility from rare disease and oncology, but also pave the way, especially in terms of the workflow that you have established really for rare disease, for example, that in any of this cancer or other common disease that has a genetic component would immediately benefit from that workflow that you have put together for rugged. The second thing, which I think would be an interesting concept, which is to think about the fact that so many of the times when we look at the traditional pharma models today, we talk about CDX or companion diagnostics, but really I think to sort of challenge ourselves, at Illumina or at least within the group that Donovan and myself are in, we almost want to think of this as in the near time future, we should be looking at potentially clinical whole genome as the universal diagnostics, and everything else will be a companion therapeutics instead. So kind of turning it around, rather than what we are seeing here today, where we look at the therapeutics and then we say that diagnostics or genetic testing is a companion diagnostic to that therapeutic. Now, the other kind of perspective that I think could be interesting to see whether that plays out well in Thailand as well, in Taiwan as well, is that there will be we think that there will be two key drivers for genomics at scale, right? And the first one is really bottoms up, and this is through the consumer experience with genomics. I understand that in Taiwan, this is not yet regulated, but once that comes along, you will see that the consumers or the public literacy on genomics, given that while it's still so-called recreational, it actually increased the awareness of genetics, of DNA, and of the applications. Although in the initial instance, it's more recreation, right? It's about lifestyle, it's about, I've seen applications on how your genes could determine your taste in wine, for example, maybe in whiskey here. So that's one bottom-up approach, which we think that would drive the future of sequencing. The second one, which is more top-down, which is not a surprise, where a lot of our focus is on, how can we help countries to address the key bottlenecks to integrate genomics at scale within the healthcare system. And so this is where you kind of see, how GEL, for example, has established a single genetic testing directory, which then sort of really streamlines and normalizes the process, and obviously the efficiency in which the demand for genetic testing would actually increase the volume of, and the utility as well to increase the volume of the sequencing. So this is something I think will be in the near future, in the less than 10 years, that we think that both segments or both applications will, or let's say the two key things that will drive genomics is going to be converging around the wellness piece and also the genomic data economy, right? How do we capitalize on the new insights that you now put genomic information together with phenotypic data and everything else around that. Now, just back to what I started with, as I mentioned, today Illumina works with close to 50 national efforts. It's a little bit different from, let's say, a pure large-scale cohort, but rather when we mean national initiatives, those are discrete, deliberate programs and investments by governments to see how they can help integration of genomics into the healthcare system. And what we then find is, obviously, the cost of, and one of the key drivers, let's say, for this is that the cost of delivering healthcare today are definitely growing at a faster rate, which the rise in premiums, or let's say the cost savings that you can get from the degree of some of these new therapeutics. Healthcare today is very much designed around reacting or reactive. And there are a number of legacy, systems that are in place, and so what you then see is that there is incomplete or non-ideal learning health system whereby a lot of this data are siloed, either in research institutes, cohorts, or even in health systems limited to certain hospitals and things like that. You don't have sort of a dynamic link between the clinical data that's being generated. On the left, if you recall what Donovan has mentioned, and the right where you have the research community, which then looked at it more from an aggregated perspective. So that's where we are. And this slide, again, shows you the experience of GEL. And as you can see here, the first 3 years was really focused on operational, scale-up related challenges. And one of the key one, is what Donald has mentioned as well, where through the experience of doing clinical grade post sequencing, we realized that FFPE was not sufficient, and that took quite a fair bit for the NHS to kind of turn around and switch to fresh frozen. Obviously, we played a role at the time to put in place a centralized facility that would create that factory or the industrial grade approach to sequencing, and that when GEL started, genomics was still what they call a cottage industry, which means that you have multiple labs doing their own thing, and you don't have normalized standardization across all those labs as well, to where they are now, which is that 13 genomic medical centers and centralized laboratories consolidating samples, standardized protocols for managing the sample handling as well. And then once they got through that first 3 years, the next set of challenges became sort of more relating to the clinical implementation of the testing guidance. And so this is again not an easy effort, because these are health systems are huge machinery, right? You can't change that so easily quickly. And so that's the same even in a developed country like the UK, where again they were struggling with how do we make this data talk to each other, right? And so I think the basics which Donovan has mentioned is something that we believe could be a really good example at which the UK is also, kind of investing a lot to not just do it for themselves, but then to invite, collaborations across the world, especially for those countries that are investing in making genomics part of routine care, to see how that could actually be done. And then we know that the 100K thing has been done, and now and now we're looking towards the next 1 million and the next 5 million, and migrating to the cloud, and some of the other key components of the healthcare system that is yet to be put in place but needs to be now put in place, such as workforce and some of the other wellness and industry engagement. So I guess from our perspective, we aim to a future vision in which you have more than 50 globally connected learning health systems, where genomics could be or would be a core to the way risk is stratified or the population is stratified, obviously the prevention, the care, and also the industry engagement. So these are some of the, let's say, ideal defining characteristics of a successful learning health system. And I think one of the things that we are quite excited about the way Taiwan is looking at this, or Peter is looking at this through NHRI and its collaborators, is that you could actually jumpstart the whole process, right? There's no need to kind of do the 10-year roadmap, but actually jump straight to where we know would be the nice sweet spot for you to reap the investment in genomics. So this is something that goes through a little bit more details when we look across the 50 programs. We think that in the next, and this is not what Illumina would address, but generally we think that the next 3 years we're going to have to figure out, let's say, the scalability challenges related to that. Standardization is going to be core. The evidence of clinical utility is going to be important. Consent management is actually a very critical potential bottleneck, and AI for interpretation. So that's what we are focusing, let's say, in the near term. And then in the midterm, you see that there are also, again, certain bottlenecks that potentially will come out even in Taiwan, and we need to preempt for that, right? And these are, for example, as you can see here, the linkage between the electronic health records. I think in Taiwan, you do have the advantage of having a very robust system with the national insurance, and almost everything is electronic through the ID card, so that's good. And then the list kind of goes on, and then in the sort of longer term, it will be important, let's say, in terms of how Taiwan would be developing its roadmap, to just make sure that some of these considerations are not left until later on, that you would upfront understand what are the ways to do that, right? Because if you look at some of those factors here, physician education is not something that's easy to change as well, right? So although we say this is 7 to 10 years, but really the engagement needs to start now, right? But we think that maybe 5 to 7 years, then you can actually make that change. The same thing with, I think, big data, or the same thing with some of the legislation, the regulation that is required in terms of, just making sure that you have a moratorium, for example, on insurance companies, so that, when patients get information around, or information on their predisposed risk, will not, jeopardize their eligibility for insurance. So all these things are really important, and I just want to kind of show this again. Not so much that you have to do this like in sequence, but rather to sort of think about those challenges right now. How does that relate to the current situation in Taiwan? Who are the right stakeholders that we need to bring along this journey, so that when you are talking about the, let's say, research objective, but we don't forget that it takes time for the health system to be able to do some of these things. So this slide gives you a sense of the top 6 to 7, let's say, national initiatives that we are aware of and focusing. And again, this does not represent all the large-scale cohorts. Again, what's important for us is which are the cohorts, or which are the efforts that are actually leading or part of the national agenda. And so, you have Singapore, Thailand, China as well, to some extent, And then more recently, we've heard obviously from Hong Kong. Australia is one of the well-known leaders in this space. And Korea and Japan is also sort of really looking at how they can do this at scale. So that's just to give you a flavor. Okay, and then the remainder of my slide is just kind of, I think, draw certain common themes that we see across the 50 programs. And so what you see here is that, from having just $300 million globally, we are able to actually track the fact that governments are, in collective sense, investing about $3 billion right now. In terms of the number of whole genomes, that has also kind of skyrocketed. The motivations, for doing this at scale, as I mentioned, the key ones are really in relation to how can this save money for the healthcare system, how can this reduce the diagnostic odyssey and some of the patient outcomes that I think is really important. I think what is also equally important is the fact that genomics can be seen as an economic driver, right? And this is why the industry and the industry development piece is also important, because a lot of times, when you have, let's say, the initial pilot 10,000, 50,000, those are usually, let's say, manageable within a research fund or research environment, right? Now, when you think about that being sort of a routine health service, then you very quickly the numbers will go up very high. So, and that's where, from our experience at least, the kind of key factors that are important for ministries of health, ministries of finance, would be things that are, adjacent to health, right? And so creating more jobs in Taiwan, leveraging on the fact that Taiwan has a very strong IT ecosystem is going to be key. And those are, I think, important aspects that we need to consider. And then the success factors, again, these are not surprising. Obviously you need a good leader, and I think with Peter we've been fortunate, and also with President Liang and some of the senior leadership at NHI, we're beginning to see sort of a path towards getting this done. And then I think we are keen to learn from you in terms of how we can better understand some of the politics, some of the regulatory dynamics, and obviously within the healthcare sector as well, you need to bring different people along this journey. And so a little bit as to, I guess, what Illumina is able to support here is that at the first cut, I think we believe in sharing of best practices. So since the very beginning, we worked with NHI and the leadership to bring them, to GEL, to England to see the IELTS lab, and also more recently been to the headquarters for Illumina as well to talk to multiple partners. Because again, I think GEL has shown us the way that it can be done at the price, but the time or the pace in which they have done it shouldn't be the same for everyone else, right? So we should be able to shorten the time to achieving what they have achieved. And then some of the other parts of, I guess, Illumina and the partners that we work with, like GA for GH, or even the fact that, well, I think the sequencing technology is great, but there's also all the other value that we can add in terms of the research, scientific collaborations, and interestingly, I think the bioinformatics piece and the AI piece is going to be also, something that we would like to, offer our opportunity to partner. And then some of the operational and technical piece. So this is again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, or countries don't have to reinvent the wheel each time they think about this, right? So this is again something that we believe we can help by just putting, countries or like-minded partners together so that they can learn from each other. And then my last slide is really, I think, just to reinforce or reiterate, the common theme on standardization, because of the fact that genomics is really global. Even if you specifically just look at rare disease and oncology, the scale and the numbers that we need to reach will not likely be done in one single country. So the only way we can talk to each other is through standardization. So that's where I think at the global level there is really a recognition of that. So we have agencies like GA for GH working by ISO, so that again it's not a case of everyone doing their own thing. And then, obviously without standardization, I think, we're going to face a lot more challenges downstream and maybe push back, the entire industry by another 5 to 10 years. And so, which is why even as Illumina, we believe in just making sure that everyone understands the value of standardization. And then in relation to that, I guess, I like the concept of what Peter Goodhand was mentioning, not so much on data sharing, but then data visiting. That's an interesting concept because, again, a lot of this has a lot of implications in every country in terms of their sovereign requirements and restrictions to some extent, if you think about data being sent out of the country. So, but I think what is important, at least in the scientific and technical community, is that in fact there's a solution already there, right? To be able to access information without that information leaving the country. But there's a lot of education that we need to make, to groups outside of this room, let's say. So my last slide here is again, we do strongly believe that genomics in medicine is likely going to be routine in the next 10 years. The uptake of sequencing, I think, will accelerate. Again, I think this idea of whole genome as a universal diagnostics with companion therapeutics is an interesting concept. That will change the way we look at healthcare and the way pharma, for example, looks at drug development. The key is in data sharing, harmonization, and then obviously the last one is we believe that we can only achieve this through partnerships with all stakeholders. Okay, so thank you so much. That's my presentation.